Oh, because I was muted because I'm stupid, Andrew. There we go. All right, sound should be good now. So yeah, Matt's the owner of FCG. Sound is good now, correct? I see boo bars in here. All right, sound is good. No. I'm not on the call. He's going to join live in the video. Okay, cool. All right, Matt's here now. Let me add him in. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Mike, what's going on, man?
Not much, buddy. So, hey, we're live, good to go. We're on Facebook and YouTube, so I'll send you the link if you're interested later. So,
Sure.
Appreciate you jumping on.
I appreciate you having me this morning.
Yeah, hey, like I told you before, pretty. As soon as somebody's company gets called out in the group, not called up, but just brought up in the group, I figure, hey, I'm a big fan of open discussion. So, yeah, I'll hear both sides. So, I know you said you didn't really want this to be about FCG, but that's kind of the one of the topics I was curious about. So, what's the? I guess let me ask you. I got to say this too before we start. You'll realize this very quick. I'm not that great at interviewing. Haven't been doing this that long. It does seem like you get pretty aggressive with people. Is that? I don't know if that's intentional. There's no chance that's the first time you've heard this, correct?
No, but with reason. And here's, I think that's a good start. These guys don't bother taking 30 seconds to look at what we're doing. And I totally understand where they're coming from and why, right? There's got to be, 5-10 new companies. Started with Tyler at HGA. He did a great job. He's got a great niche over there. And then you've got a bunch of guys coming out.
But you got to say, though, you did kind of come at Tyler in your first video, which I didn't mind.
Friendly poke. I respect what he's doing. Okay. I think he's done a great job of putting that together.
I laughed. I like the AI doll. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, no harm intended. But he's got a nice niche that he created over there. And I get it where these guys that stop by the page, and it is just the page. It's not the group. We've got over 1,000 members in the group. I posted that video yesterday of us doing that crack at the Bobby Witt Jr., and we graded it under the scope. It's got over 500 views. Not one guy questioned how we graded the card. And I was fully prepared for guys to take a swing at us or me. Going, oh, that's not a 9.5. That's not a 9. And that wasn't the case. Not one guy. There wasn't a bunch of laugh emojis or anything like that. It was nothing but positive feedback. And here's my problem with guys stopping on the page to take a swing like they do is people coming into the hobby see stuff like that. And people getting into the hobby are very impressionable. I don't care what they think about FCG, but customs are handed down in this hobby, right? And when you've got guys that don't take 2 seconds to actually evaluate what's going on and they're passing judgment, and I don't care what their opinion is, that's fine, but keep it to yourself. If you want to spend 3 minutes to look into what we're doing and you still don't like it, okay, I'm fine with that. And I'll read into that and I'll make adjustments. And I like, feedback.
But you had to expect this too, right? I mean, you've been on social media quite a bit. You have to know, and especially, I always say this line, and we got plenty of hate, and we still do for the podcast because of how big it is. Anything new in this space, people hate instantly. You will never convince me of anything different. So, I mean, you had to be kind of prepared for that on social, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing. For every one guy taking a blind swing on Facebook, I've got 50 messages from real guys in the hobby encouraging what we're doing and
sure.
sharing the same sentiment that something needs to change in the hobby. I'm only protecting it with that kind of vigor, right? So new people coming into the hobby, new people that have never graded before, right? So they have an open mind. Because the reality of it is the reason we got where we are in the hobby right now is because of closed-mindedness. And there's other things going on with values and just this nonsense that gets handed down, from one guy to the next. And half of it is rooted in garbage, and then the other half is too. I mean, that's the bottom line. And look, for those of you guys that don't know me, I'm a collector. That's what I do. I run a mortgage company. I run South Lake Mortgage. I'm not bragging. I happen to be one of the top loan officers in the country.
Oh, I got the brag last night. Trust me. I saw how much money you make and all that. I thought that was interesting.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Bottom line is this. I do very well. I'm not doing this for the money, right? My collection, you can check it out, some of it on Instagram. But, when guys stop by, it's a money grab. I'll tell you what, if it was a money grab, I would have put the price at $12 a card, right? We'd have thousands of cards coming in and out of here, right? I set the bar higher for ourselves. I set the bar up here where only true like collectors and cards over a certain dollar amount, right, would come here. And that's all we've seen so far. Had I set the bar down here, yeah, I could have set it down here at $15 a card, and we would have had an endless amount of cards. That's not what this is about for me. I wanted collectors, real guys, to have a place where they could send their cards and trust that they were being reviewed properly. And in the scheme of things, for $35 a shot or $29 in bulk, to have your card looked at accurately and back to you in 10 days, I mean, you know what's going on in the market right now. So do I, as a collector. You're not going to touch that.
Yeah, so I present the same thing I present to you in private message then, because you made this statement there too. No one's touching that. So and I'm not shy about it. I'm signed on with SGC. You say you won't touch that. I would argue, well, they're $10 cheaper. They have an established track record. I think they have better technology, and they have resale records, right?
So I'm assuming the technology you're referring to is that VSC 80 that sits in their office. Is that the better technology you're talking about?
Well, and also the people who started the company with 20 years of experience. I mean, I've known Foreman since his PSA days back.
Oh, and I'm not knocking them by the way.
Sure.
But I personally, were I a vintage collector, right? I would send my cards to them, and I've said that multiple times in different posts.
But an ultra modern, though, you would send to you for more money with less again, I'm not even knocking the process yet.
You're making an assumption that there's less resale, and that's not the case.
Where's your resale records?
A handful of our cards have shown up on eBay, right? And in the groups, and they've had no problem holding their own value-wise. So I wouldn't make that assumption that they're not holding value, and that's one of those assumptions that people make, and it's not necessarily rooted in fact. And I'll tell you too, 5, 10, 15 cards selling is you can't form an opinion. I can't form an opinion.
You just did though. You just told me you're comfortable with SCG because of 15 cards, right? I defended
your statement that you said there was no resale value. And the truth of the matter is this, and I'm not knocking SGC, but there is no resale value in modern SGC. And you know that too. And you mentioned it. If we're going to bring up private conversations.
Bring it all up. Anything I mentioned, you can bring up.
You said
no question.
that the sweet spot for SGC is that
under
$400 price point. And
absolutely.
They would never send anything over that dollar amount to them.
That's correct. Oh, absolutely. I say it on the podcast all the time. I don't sing and dance in PM. Anything under $400 raw, I send to SGC and my high-end vintage. I got my Bill Russell rookies going down there. Those will be 20 to 30,000. I'm not sending an orange Justin Herbert auto there. That's not a secret.
Well, here's the thing. We've got guys sending that type of stuff to us.
You don't think that's foolish, though? You're a collector. How many of your high-dollar $3 million collection do you have in your own holders?
I have 0, and here's why. If I can get away with slabbing my own cards and not have my objectivity questioned, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Okay, then I'm actually fine.
I'll tell you
I'm fine with that.
If I will do it on camera with any of my cards, on camera I will have them graded, like we did with the Bobby Witt Jr. If you can get the public sentiment away from that objectivity question, I'll do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, so I actually agree with that. I'm fine with that answer. The same reason Tyler at HGA, these guys don't grade their stuff. I actually have no issue with that because even if you did it live, you wouldn't hear the end of it.
No, of course not.
But I do take exception to the statements about resale value with other things. Because in one vein, you just told me, well, you can't base it on 15 sales, but how many more sales have there? I don't think you could say anything definitively about FCG either way right now with resale.
And that's what I'm saying. Well,
but I can definitively say that SGC is selling for on average, 70% of PSA right now, and for considerably less money. So I guess
on eBay the other day, the highest modern SGC card I saw was a Torque refractor with a $5,000 price.
And that's why we're not. And I'm not talking about $5,000 cards. We just said we're throwing those out. But I'm talking.
Well, I'm not after the $300 mark. I mean, we are. I mean, that's in our sweet spot too. But yeah, I mean, why? I mean, they've had 20 years, like you said, to establish a reputation, and they've done a great job on the vintage side.
So what's your target? So what's the target market? High-end modern, then, is what you're basically saying?
Modern, definitely. And everybody has their own definition of high-end. I would say, in that range of about $200 plus, $150, $200 plus. And look, we're open to working with collectors that slab for the sake of protecting their cards. That's not a knock on that either. Right? I'm cool with those guys. I appreciate that too. What I don't want to do and what we're not after is the guys that take commons, right? $5, $10, $15 cards, slap them in a slab and try to make a 50% profit. And there's no shame in that game either. And it serves its purpose in the hobby. It's not what I'm after. And these guys, barking, and it's few and far between on the page, about lower your price to $12, $15. You got to prove yourself. No, I don't want that. Subconsciously, when all you see is $10, $15, $20 cards in these new companies slabs, guys like you, guys like me, real collectors, subconsciously, you connect that brand with lesser stuff, cheaper stuff. And you tell me any type of normal brand or luxury brand or any company for that matter, building a brand who discounted their product to get it into the market with any intention of having a brand in the future. It's a death sentence. And the problem when you do it, when you go to raise your prices, even if you've proved your point, you have no pricing power. If we want to talk about Tyler, poor Tyler went to go raise his prices by $5. He's taken on additional costs. You should have seen the flash he got. He had 100 people screaming at him in 5 minutes, enough so that he had to recant on a video that night. I mean, come on. I've got armchair economists telling me how to run my company. It's fantastic. Get out of here.
I'm one step above armchair. Not two armchairs.
Not you.
Close. I know. I'm busting your chops.
And it's not a lot, but there's guys telling us, how to price our product. And look, I firmly believe we have a more thorough review, and nobody can recant that because guess what? No other grading company will flat out show you how they're grading your cards.
Yeah, I do want to get to the review video because you said earlier you hadn't got any hate about that. I have some, not even hate, but I have some criticisms. But I do, one other thing you brought up, kind of like the integrity, getting yourself known. One thing that was glaring to me last week, you announced on the page you were teaming up, and I'm curious, you took his name off there, but if you'll still be doing business, Luis Molina is another guy. I saw that name. I'm sure, unless your head is totally buried in the sand, you don't have hair on there, so I don't know what your head's doing. But that guy is literally blocked from every grading company now, right? Group sub guys will not deal with him because he alters cards and cleans them and waxes them. Right. And then you guys had announcements saying that you were using them. What's the story with that?
Because you also, what you said is pertinent also. Mm-hmm. I did put up that post. Yep. He was referred to me by somebody I trust, right?
Who?
And within 30 seconds of putting up that post, I had 4 guys approach me, right? And how long did it take for me to take the name off the post?
You don't see that as an issue, though. Just as strict.
No. Wait a second. Hear what I'm saying, right? We're not working with him.
You made a post though saying you were, and minutes later you retracted. I guess my point is, I run other bit. Go ahead. I'll let you talk. Go ahead.
Right. We put up the post. I was not aware of his reputation.
That's my issue.
I was not aware of it. He was referred to me by somebody I trust. I reached out. We had a good conversation. Right.
Yep.
I put it on the post, and then literally within about 30 seconds to a minute, I had 4 guys approach me about his reputation. Right. I did some due diligence on my own. And it was immediately removed from the post within minutes.
So you don't find that, though, again, objectively, you're a businessman. According to the numbers you sent me, you're more successful than I am in business. Not by much, but a little bit.
I'm busting that either.
Matt, I'm busting your chops. I don't make that kind of money in a year, so I have no problem saying it. I say very public. I don't care.
It goes as fast as it comes. But either way, go ahead.
My point is, you don't have a question. You wouldn't question a company that comes out and says, hey, we're partnering with this guy, and then off some reports they hear after the fact. I guess my thing is, if I'm putting my brand on something, I'm vetting that guy fully ahead of time. I'm doing my due diligence ahead of time before I make an announcement. Am I glad you took it down? Sure. But at the same time, that's a bad, you can't acknowledge that's at least a bad look.
Yeah, I suppose you could look at it like that.
How else could I look at it then? You got a guy who vouched for him. You said he was good. And you said too, you've got multi-million-dollar collection. You're obviously active in the hobby. And I saw the pics at Nats. I roll with some of the guys you roll with. You've never, I'm just shocked you didn't know of this guy in the first place, I guess.
No, he doesn't run in my circle. And to be honest with you, I don't grade with PSA. I've done 1 submission with PSA.
Well, even Beckett, he's banned around. So he is not going to be affiliated. I know he was off the announcement. He won't be affiliated in any way.
That's correct. And that's why it was taken down. And look, it's an honest mistake. Do I have confidence that we would have caught it if he was rubbing them down, waxing them down, or sanding them down? Yeah, absolutely. But I had no idea of his reputation. Luckily, I run in a great circle where guys are looking out for me. And there was enough information where I could do my due diligence and form my own opinion. And the opinion was, and I'm not trying to bash the guy either. But,
I am. You alter cards to make money doing it. What are we doing?
Any of the allegations. But I'm not in the room when he's doing, I'm not privy to what PSA does or why they make their decisions.
By the way, Matt, I gotta show you this
myself.
comment. You got one guy here. I like people who are this ridiculously biased and just this FCG fanboy. I have enjoyed, but he has been blowing up the chat. I don't know who it is, but he's a good guy. He's spot on too, by the way, with this comment. I am a loudmouth Bostonian. I'm not going to hide about that. So
I can't see the feed. I'll check it out afterward.
No, you're fine. I'm busting chops. So I do want to ask you then about the grading process, because I am curious about that too.
Sure.
There were a couple things, again, to me that stood out that scared me. First of all, and again, it's not as much of an issue, obviously, with modern, but measurements on a card. That was the first thing I thought, well, there's plenty of trimming that happens and people shaving down cards. Sure. I did find that a little, like even the Bobby Witt. Had that Bobby Witt come to your raw and somebody kind of touched that up or trimmed aside, which is pretty common now, right, how would you guys have detected that, I guess?
Sure. So it's not necessarily about the size of the card per se. Right? What you're looking at is the edges. And contrary to what people would think, when you're looking at the edges, you're not looking for striations and stuff like that to indicate that the card may have been trimmed. It's the opposite. It's if it's unnaturally smooth and you lose that factory cut, if somebody's sanding it down, that's what would be a tip off. So keep in mind, we've got rulers here. We do all kinds of stuff.
I get that, but I can only go up. You said you're showing me A to Z, the grading process. I watched the video. There's no rulers in that video, and there's no.
Wait a second. Then you didn't watch the video because
you use the ruler to determine centering, but the card was never measured or sized up, correct? Or did I miss that part?
No, you're correct. It was not sized up, but the edges were absolutely checked under the magnifying glass for exactly what you're talking about. What would you look for, Mike, if you were looking to detect shaving or trimming?
Oh, I mean, you're absolutely right about the texture, but I also think measurements play a large part.
Is that not what we looked at under the magnifying glass?
Oh, sure, you looked at. Oh, I'm not saying you didn't look at it. Yeah, okay. Agree to disagree on that. That's fine.
Measuring the card is the only way to detect
trimming. I don't think it is either. But
I don't think it's the best way either, because these things are different sizes too.
Sure. Oh, I'm well aware of the amount of play that comes out of Bowman. Yep, and they state it right on their factory. I understand that.
Okay. We also have QC in place too when we slab these things. If these things don't fit naturally in the slab or something's off, we've got other QC stuff in place also.
Okay, again, I'm only going off the video. I was told here's the video of the whole process, so that's what I'm going with, right? The other thing, the back of the card was just an eye level, and I guess let me just break it down too. My whole issue was, because when we talked, it was like, one of your biggest complaints, and if this is incorrect, tell me, was the inconsistencies of other grading companies.
Absolutely.
That's fair to say?
Yeah.
I struggle then because I watch. Do you grade everything that comes through you guys, or do you have multiple graders?
We've got 6 full-time graders on staff.
And so then here would be my question. I watched the video, and I actually liked your process. The lighting, it was clear you're familiar with the surface of the card, how to catch dimples, scratches, fantastic. But like when it came to corners, you looked at it and you made a decision on what the corner was. I just think, so what's different? How could there not be inconsistencies with 7 different people grading? I mean, you looked at it, you're like, this corner's got a little bit. I'm not mad about the process. I'm just, from watching that video, I think 7 people would grade that card 7 different ways based on what I saw.
You'd be wrong. These guys have all been training with us for over 30 days now. They've graded hundreds of cards, my cards, right? And not $1,000 cards, but we're talking about these guys grading the same cards. And we've got it down to the point where all of them can pick up the same 5 cards. 4 out of the 5, they will come up with identical subgrades, right? And on that 5th card, or 20% of the time, they're going to differ by 1 subgrade by 1/2 of a point. And it's done through training, and it's done through clearly defining what is and what is not. And it's posted on the website. And when you've got the tools that we do, if they were sitting there, I think I have one on my desk, maybe. Anyway, a loop. Right? If we were going to sit here and use a loop and I was going like this, right? Yeah, you would get all kinds of subjectivity. The goal with this was to eliminate the subjectivity to an acceptable level. Eliminate is the wrong word. Minimize, because you're going to have that level of subjectivity no matter what. But the question is, what level of subjectivity? And I'm okay with that. If on 20% of the cards they're off by 1/2 a subgrade, I'm fine with that. But you're not going to be off by a full point. If you're looking at the corners using the equipment that we're using under a scope with the lighting that we have and everything, there's no way that you're going to misjudge a 9.5 corner for an 8.5. There's no way that's going to happen.
Yeah, I guess that's where we differ.
There's no way you're going to see a 10 as a 9.
I guess that's where we differ on the word of subjectivity. I mean, you're telling me 7 people are going to view within a half a point. I don't think there's 7 people in the world at any company who would do that. I don't think the other company, and that's a knock to the other companies too. I don't think any company you could line up 7 graders and look at it under the scope like you did and come up with the same subgrades within a half a point 80% of the time. So again, I'm putting you with.
I will fly you. And I'll bring my videographer into the office. I'll fly you out here, Mike, right? And we'll film it, right? You'll be here to vouch for the non-planned stuff. You can pick the cards, right? And we'll film it. We'll make a day of it, and I'll pay for your ticket. You pay for your own ticket if I'm right on for the way home, okay?
Oh, geez. Now I got to pay money. I can't swing this kind of stuff.
No, that's the point. We are nailing it, and seriously, open invitation. You come here,
okay. Hey, if it gets to a point where I think it's a big enough thing, I would do that. I have no problem. Like I said, I don't even agree or like most of what I saw, but I don't let that detract me from having people. I mean, that's why I told you to come on.
Question for you. What? And let me frame this the right way.
Don't worry about framing. Just say it. I'm fine.
Well, no, because it's important. In comparison to how the other companies grade, any of the other companies grade, what did you not like about how we grade?
So I told you number 1 for me is resale value. I think that is the most important.
Wait a second. See, that's a fallacy, Mike. Right? That has nothing to do with the grading. Okay. And that's
we're talking grading technique.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about is grading, right? Because grading is the only thing that matters, and the accuracy of grading, not the label. Right?
See, you live in that's a fantasy world, Matt. No, you know that, Matt. You know that. Which house? Okay, you're a house guy. Which house is built better? The house on the left is built better, but it's in a crappy neighborhood and has no curb appeal. It's going to sell less than the house on the right that was put up like this. No, that is exactly the point. You want to break down grading to what is the most scientifically accurate. That's fine. Let me just give you that. Let's say, okay, FCG is the absolute most freaking unbelievable, flawless grading process. The labels look ugly and there's no resale. I'm not going to use it. Period. So why are you? I think you're in a fantasy world where people grade just because they want to have the most accurate. That is not the real world.
Mike, you're nuts. Thank you, and I mean that nicely.
I don't care if you don't mean it nicely. Sure. That's the truth.
So here's the thing, right? And maybe I'm not saying you're the problem or part of the problem, right?
I guarantee I am.
We're buying baseball cards and football cards and basketball cards online. Sight unseen, right? The only reason grading exists is so we know what we are buying. So we understand what the underlying card is. And when you lose sight of that and you price and base off of whose label looks better, you have lost sight of why grading even exists.
Why do I buy the 52 mantle instead of the 51? Because the 52 looks better.
That has nothing to do with the grading.
It absolutely does. It is aesthetics. If a label is ugly, CSG is a perfect example of this. CSG, I would argue, is as accurate as any grading company. They've been the authority on comics.
On what premise? What leads you to believe that? What proof do you have that they're grading accurately? Explain to everybody.
Sure, their reputation.
Did they use, Mike, in the evaluation of their cards?
Explain
that to everybody. What you're basing your opinion on.
Their reputation with
not
comics
reputation,
and coins
that you've seen firsthand with your eyes. What leads you to believe that they're grading accurately?
I have never seen any of these companies firsthand. Including SGC, by the way. I've not seen any of them.
Okay, well, guess what? The hobby has seen what we do and how we do it.
They saw that with SGC too. I hate Sports Card Investor, but he did a much more in detailed walkthrough of the SGC setup than anything you've done.
You're insane. The only part they left out was the grading cards. I don't care how they stick their stuff in a slab. Are you nuts? Hold on, I gotta plug my phone in.
Yeah, I just think this thought of the hobby doesn't care.
That's my point. And look, when I reached out to you the other day, my point was that guys who have a voice in this hobby, right, are not using it properly, right? They're either using it to serve their own collection.
Who are we talking about, Matt? I'm not going to do this vague song. No. I need names because you did this the other day too. Perfect. Come out and say me. I am happy with that. So let's break down how you approached me too, because it's fine. I don't. Donkey's probably an overuse of the term, but that's fine. Guys in the hobby don't question things like when PSA does buyouts. Apparently, then you don't listen to the podcast because our first podcast after they bought up Golden was a huge thing about how this is a conflict of interest. When they bought WADA, same thing. No, you just said to me though, all the voices in the hobby, nobody says anything.
Well, I haven't heard that podcast, Mike, and I'll gladly
get your head out of the sand. You can't accuse me of not. Okay.
In my text or instant message I shot to you, I did not accuse you.
Right, you use vague. Right, you use these vague statements.
I
would just rather you say. I would rather you just say, "Hey, Mike, I think the way you handle your microphone is irresponsible. I disagree." Than make these vague statements. I don't mind that though. You hear me talk. I am very blunt. I have no issue with people being direct. But I don't like when guys come to me with this whole song and dance of guys in the hobby, voices. Just tell me who we're talking about. That's all I'd like to. And if it's me,
names, I'm not going to do that. That's
I don't want to go down. That's fine. I'm okay with that.
As a collector,
sure,
nothing to do with FCG. As a collector,
and I push the FCG. By the way, to your credit, that is correct. You didn't approach me about that. I want.
How many times did I tell you?
Yep.
Please leave FCG out of it.
No question.
How many times? Every time.
Multiple times. No problem.
Thank you. So
I'm not. This isn't a promo by you. I'm the one who pushed the issue. I have no question. That is all. To your credit, no problem. Okay. By the way, here you go. Just read that and deal with it. Hire this guy.
That's wonderful.
Hire him, baby. Okay, go ahead.
Getting back to what we were talking about.
Sure.
Nobody has any evidence or proof, you included, me included, other than, well, I'll leave it out, how these other companies are grading their cards. That's it. So for anybody to form an opinion about how we grade versus others, I mean, I couldn't tell you, and neither could you.
And that's why I can see, and that's why though my issue then becomes, I think this is really just an issue of, honestly, you being a little out of touch. Then I would concede if I conceded to you right now, you are the most transparent and you have the best grading technology. I still think you are missing major factors in grading, and that's the issue for me.
So
the fact that you,
in rebuttal to that,
go ahead. Yep.
I would tell you, I think you are losing sight of why grading even exists, right? The only reason it exists is so we can buy cards without them being in front of us.
Yeah, and you're wrong. It's not the only reason. It's not the only reason. It is a major factor.
Cards, maybe.
It is a major factor. But again, aesthetics of a label and a holder and resale value are also a major.
No. Resale value only comes from this false narrative that you're pushing right now. Other people push, right? The reality of it is, and I'll fly you out and we can shoot this video too. I can crack a PSA 10. I could crack a PSA 9. I could crack an SGC this. I could shuffle them up, right? And without the label, you wouldn't be able to tell which one is which. And to be honest with you, neither would I.
But I'd also be able to pay much less of a premium then because they're not graded. They don't have the label and the brand behind it.
Yeah,
again, ties
exactly
back
to
so here that brings back to
resale
value.
That's a really good point, Mike. Everybody loves to talk about PSA 10 values, right? They're great, right? What they don't talk about is that PSA 9s sell for about 60 cents on the dollar, right? And they're the same card.
Wait a minute. 60 cents on the. You're saying they sell for 60% of a 10?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
No, even less.
70%?
Even, if your point is that they sell too cheap, it's even less than 60%. So I would agree with you there.
So let me ask you a question.
You're right. I'm very reasonable, Matt.
So if you're going to talk about PSA 10 and PSA as the standard, right? I think it's only fair to include the PSA 9s because let's be honest with you, right? Most guys, they send in cards out of 10. They're getting 2 10s, right? And 8 9s. So I think it's pertinent to talk about the resale value of PSA 9s when you're discussing PSA values and how PSA leads the pack, because that's complete bullshit too.
Well, the good news is we do always discuss PSA 9s and 10s. Again,
with my friends because I buy all of them. Because truth be told, the level of subjectivity between a 9 and a 10 these days.
Sure.
Yeah, there's too much subjectivity to the point where a 9 and a 10 are the exact same card. And if I can buy one for 50, 60 cents on the dollar, right, I'm going to do that all day. And my only problem I have, right, is that I can't break them out of the case fast enough and that I can't grade them myself and not me grade, but have our company grade it. I have a case full of stuff that needs to be graded. My last submission was $6,000 for 19 cards, right? I got 5 10s, 13 9s, and an 8, right? It just so happens the 10s somehow, some way, was the Veen Superfractor, which I got knocked over the head like $1,000 to grade. There were a couple of reds in there, red refractor autos, that somehow got 10s. And then the rest of it was a 9, and who knows whether they even looked at the cards. But bottom line is this: there's a lot of false narrative in the hobby, and I get why guys will come by and take a pot shot. Who the hell needs another grading company? There's been no innovation. There's been no transparency. There's been nothing. And I'm not selling labels. I never will. I'm not talking. I don't care about the label. As a collector, I put my money where my mouth is. I buy the cards. And the issue I had as a collector these days is I can't trust the grading when I'm buying cards online. And when I have to ask for pictures, okay, of a card that's in a PSA 9 slab, right, to determine whether or not it's accurately graded or not, well, then we've lost touch with why grading even exists. And you might as well just shut the whole thing down.
Again, I just think it's tough from a guy who has a collection as big as you do. I would argue, and I have never seen any of your cards. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the majority of your financial money in your cards is tied up in holders, correct? Those are all graded cards.
And I can show you. You want to see something? Here, come on. No,
I'm just curious.
Not even close, actually. You want to be real with it?
I absolutely do.
Here, I've got this sitting right here. It's my 10th one of these. No, not even close, dude. Not even close. I'll show you. Come out and check it out, man. No, I would say at least 70% of my collection is not in holders, and that was my problem. And I finally said, screw it. Right? There's got to be other guys that are having the same problem. I did something about it.
I have no problem with the innovation. I mean, if you want to do something different, that's fine. Again, I just think the points you dismiss as being meaningless mean something to a lot of other people. Like the label thing. I know even like last night, you're not buying the label. You're not buying. Right.
You're buying a baseball card or a football card or a basketball card.
Yeah.
And the
See, I think
it's there so you understand what kind of condition it's in.
I think you're out of touch. If it's in a holder that doesn't Matt, if it's in a holder that doesn't look good though, why would I want that card? I'm going to send it to something else.
First of all, that's your opinion.
Correct.
Right?
And that is only my opinion.
Right or wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Opinion is opinion.
Sure.
Right? I don't buy cards based upon how the label looks.
Well, you don't buy graded cards,
though. I'm buying $3, $4, $5, $8, $10,000 cards. I buy them based upon the condition. And anybody who's buying cards over a couple $100 based upon how the label looks, you're doing it wrong. And I will gladly talk to you privately or point you in the direction of other folks that know what they're doing in the hobby that will happily answer your questions and point you in the right direction.
Yeah. Again, look at sales then. You say this like this is an absolute fact.
Look at the PSA 9 sales. And look, Mike, go ahead and talk about the possibility of artificial supply and demand in the PSA 10s. What's your standpoint on that? How do you explain the population, for example, in any vintage card or whatever card that's worth a shit, right? Where all the Ricky Hendersons. Let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
How come in the 1980 top set, right? There's like 29 PSA 10s. It runs at like a 1/100th of a percent or 1,000th of a percent 10 rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas every other card in that set runs at like a 30% 10 rate. Were they just damaging Ricky Hendersons in 1980? Or kids
I've never seen the numbers, so I can't.
Go ahead and check the pop report. I'm not accusing. I'm just saying, right? It seems
that's okay. You are accusing, and that's okay. I actually like that. That's fine.
I don't want any problems. But
I don't. You made a good statement. If that's true, then I would actually agree with you, and I would be saying it accusatorily.
Why were people sticking people sticking Ricky Hendersons in their bike spokes in 1980? Was that the thing to do? Why is every other card in that set running at like a 20-30% 10 rate versus all over submissions? Why? Same thing with the Ripkins. Same thing with the Mattinglys. Same thing with the Nolan Ryans. Same thing with all of them, right? Do you think it's okay to grade a card condition-wise, right, based upon who's on the card, or should it be about the corner, the edges, the surface, and the centering? What's your opinion on that?
Of course, I think it should be about the card. No question.
Do you feel it's being done like that?
With the companies I use, I do, yeah.
How do you know that? Do you have, and you've already said multiple times, you have no clue how they're grading the cards.
No. I said I've never seen firsthand. I have a pretty detailed walkthrough of how they do it.
Oh, because a couple of my graders actually interviewed with some of these other companies.
Okay.
They gave them one of those, those cards you get at Lens Crafter, right? Those little plastic cards. And they told them to hover it over the cards and tell them what they see.
Were you at the National by chance?
No, and a bunch of guys came back with COVID too. I hope everybody's okay, but no, I wouldn't do that. My kid's got asthma. I'm not going to.
Oh, well, smart man. That's fine. I would say then, had you seen and again, I'm not a PSA fanboy, although I have a lot of money tied up in PSA, so I do like
You
them.
and I both. That's the thing too. I'm not trying to discredit anybody.
Wait a minute. I thought you don't have graded cards. Now we got a lot of money at PSA 10s. However, my point is, let me stick to what we were saying here real quick.
Go ahead.
This thing about the grading test, though, they had 10 different cards set up at different areas that were already graded by their professional graders. That was part of the job interview. So I will say on that, I'm not sure how much better you do it than that.
Same thing here. But the tools they're using, look, let me find it.
And just to be clear, you keep saying this tool. That's a bit.
Here,
maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but as
this is what I'm talking about. Here you go. This is the tool, right? It's so good, right? You're gonna sit here like this all day. These professionals, right? These professional graders that you're referring to, they hire them at $16 an hour. So let's be real about these professional graders. You think they lose any sleep whether they slap a 9 or a 10 on your card, or if it's a 9.5 sub or a 9 sub? I got news for you. They don't. And
so you found
on my card, right?
So you found the only guys in this industry then that will grade absolutely without any subjugation. They are just ready to go. All these other companies, it just sounds.
What are you talking about?
Well, you keep because you knock the other ones. I'm just.
What I said, Mike, was we're giving them the tools.
And no one uses that loop, by the way. They have the same very similar magnifications.
What are they using?
The same thing you did. They have a magnification tool, whatever. It's like it looks like a telescope. I'm not that smart. It looks exactly like a telescope with lighting around the lens.
You've seen it?
Yeah, these were at National. It was the exact same thing they had on display. Yeah.
Okay. Have you been inside the grading room?
No. Have you?
No.
Okay. I've been inside your grading.
FCG?
I've been inside yours, though, because I've seen your video, and it looked very similar, is what I'm telling you. If the thing
you haven't seen their room. What are you talking about?
I saw the machine. I don't care what room it's in. They had the machine at the National.
Great. Are they using it?
I mean, if we're just going to question everything, I guess at that point, I have no idea. I'm 9 feet tall. What are we talking? I mean, yeah, they brought it out on display to show you what they used to do.
Oh.
Yeah, at some point, I take their word. If you don't trust them to that degree, you shouldn't own a single PSA card, period, then.
Well, I'm not.
If your level of
cards in their slabs, that's for sure. That I'm not.
I would get the ones that you have in their slabs out immediately, then too. Send them somewhere else. I mean, if you are to that level, trust me, I don't try to sell people short of how scummy they can be. I think every company makes mistakes, and nobody is 100% foolproof by any stretch of the imagination. And I think the way they've handled the market, I struggle with. $200 a card steep. Although when you're the king of the mountain, you can kind of set your price and do what you want.
Why are they the king of the mountain? It's because they have. Like you, and listen, guys like you, guys like me, when it's convenient, right? Mm-hmm. Just keep pushing that narrative. When I go to sell a XYZ in a PSA 10, it's convenient for me to push the narrative, of course. And that's the problem. But look, if we're talking real, right? The narrative has to also include the PSA 9s, like you said. I said 70%. You said less.
Less than they sell for about, on average, 30 to 40% of a PSA 10. They still outsell a raw card, but at the moment, it is not worth the discrepancy in grading price unless it's a very high dollar card.
So, given the fact that you have, well, how do I want to phrase this? If it's not about the card, right? And I firmly believe that it's not about the condition of the card. A lot of it has to do with who's on the card. Has to do with the population, right? If you've got a better chance of getting a 9 than a 10, and you're paying $200 plus for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, if you want to spin the wheel and roll the dice, yeah, go after that 10, right? But when reality sets in, right, and you've got 70% of your submission back in a 9, and you just cut 40% of the value on your cards.
Well, you've increased the value over raw, though. Again, we're twisting numbers here. A PSA 9, in general, almost across the board, outsells a raw card. I'm not sure where you're...
No, they're kind of close.
They're close.
It's starting to narrow. But look, for the money, for the roll of the dice, if it was based on the merit of the card only, and if I firmly believed that, and after reviewing my own cards and looking at them and feeling confident, that I had a good chance at a 10, yeah, I've got cards that I would spend a couple $100 and send it. I did it. I told you my last submission cost me like $6,400, and I was faced with that reality. right? They nined a couple of Noel V oranges. They nined a handful of Hendrick oranges, some Veen oranges. They smashed about, $100,000 worth of value on my last submission. And then they kicked me on the way out and upcharged me, for the superfractors that
What
they
was
can.
what was the value? See, again, I guess this too is where I have a bit of an issue. If I was in total lockstep with you and what you've said, right, where you've questioned everything about them, and I don't mind. I don't care if people are critical. Then how in God's name are you sending $100,000 worth of cards there? I guess that's
It was a
kind of
one-shot thing. It was my first, last, and only submission that I sent there. And yeah, to somebody that's like, whoa, yeah, that's crazy. But look, everybody plays at their own level and does their own thing.
It's not a money level to me. I just have an issue. If I thought a company was that questionable, I'm not sending them a $5 card.
So
I guess,
and not to defend myself, but this was coming up on 7-8 months ago.
Okay.
This didn't happen 2 weeks ago. This was months ago. This was back in January.
Oh, you said the $200 a card, which is a new price. I thought you were talking about very recently.
No, I've always paid for premium sub. Even before they shut down, I was paying to get my stuff done in a couple days.
Yeah. All right. I mean, hey, like I said, I'm a fan of being we've messaged back and forth enough, and once things start getting talked about in the group, especially when it's business, when it affects people's money and bottom dollar, I am a fan of, hey, come on. I don't care if I agree, disagree. Anybody who will come on and speak, because I'm not the easiest person to talk to. I have some respect.
No, I actually love it. I think you're.
Yeah, I don't.
You hold yourself. I like the straightforwardness.
Well, and the fact that you sit here and take it, I have no. My hat's off to you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I just think you and I come from very different lines of thinking. But my biggest problem, though, is a couple times now it's like, hey, you've used the kind of, hey, I'm pushing the narrative, which I'm glad you finally named me, because I knew it's who we were talking about in PM anyways. Just come out.
Though, I'm telling you, it honestly wasn't.
All right. Well, today it is, and that's fine. I applaud you for standing up and saying
your perspective, but I think it's dangerous. If we're losing sight of why grading exists.
That's our issue, though. See, we are not starting on the same baseline. Grading exists to me. It is not a singular truth. It is not just about the authenticity of the card. Everything plays into that. That
I agree with. But the point is this: when the underlying card and the accuracy of the grade is in question, and it then spills into the dollar amount and the resale issue. So you can't have one conversation without talking about the other. They're not mutually exclusive. That's the problem. So I take issue with the underlying part. You're absolutely right. The grade itself is not the only thing, right? But when it's becoming a problem, then it spills into the other things that matter, like resale values and things like that. And it's way too early to see what we're going to do, and for any of the relatively newer companies. But my thing is, if we're going to do something, we're going to do it right. We're going to do it wide open. And that's it. But it's way too early to tell on values. I've been very happy so far with the way our cards have held their own on eBay. It is no indication of what it's going to do in the future. It's an extremely small sampling, but I'm happy so far. And I'm not easy to make happy.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, hey, I appreciate the time. Matt, let them know where they can find you too. Make sure it's FCG or give us a website, Facebook group. Drop your handles where they can find you too.
We've got the Facebook group. It's FCG Forensic Card Grading. You got the website. It's fcggrading.com. Check us out. We dropped a video yesterday. That's the thing. If you guys want to take shots after watching the videos, cool, right? If you're just going to take blind shots, that's silly. People are watching you. They listen to you. They respect you. And not you, but guys that put up posts like that in your group. They respect you. New people, new to the hobby, they don't know any better. Take 3 minutes. Do a little due diligence. If you don't like it after the fact, all right, swing away. I'm cool. But check us out. It's fcggrading.com. Mike, I want to thank you for taking the time with me, being fair this morning. And you're a good dude, and hopefully we can talk again.
Good deal. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate the time, buddy.
All right, thanks, Mike. Talk to you.
All right, we'll see you.
Later.
All right. Well, there you go. I'm trying to get involved in these little side projects because it's a forum I'm more comfortable with. I don't know if anybody's in here or not. I could care less if people have left. That's fine. Again, I always stand by the statement, though, if you're going to criticize somebody, which I don't necessarily think we did criticize them, but people in the group did, I'm more than happy to give somebody a the platform to respond. I think that's just how you do things. You hear me white knight all the time about free speech. I believe in it. I don't, quite frankly, after hearing him, I don't, maybe you thought differently. And if you did, here's what I would say. If you, just like I would do with any other business, any other company, whatever, if you liked what you heard and you appreciate that, I would just tell you, use them then. I have no issue with that. I say the same about HGA, PSA, BGS, SGC, CSG, whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with. My thought is, though, I'm just going to tell you, when people make blanket statements like that and they're vague, I have a real struggle. So I applaud Matt for coming on. I try not to lose my cool. I'm always much more calm than I think I'm going to be anyways. Again, I think to live in this world where resale value is not connected to why people grade and the look of a label is not connected to why people grade. My grandmother doesn't know what an iPhone is. It doesn't mean an iPhone isn't relevant. Like, I just think that's a tough sell for me. However, again, the guy had a platform. I tried to give him, I tried not to interrupt. I interrupt sometimes because I get a little excited. But, in general, at least there you go. His videos are up. You can see their grading process. So yeah, like I said, I have no issue. I applaud anybody who will come on and actually fight for what they think. Hey, this is my company. This is how I feel. In that respect, good for him. He came on, he didn't back down from much of what he said. Again, at the end, and I don't want to break it down now that he's not here either. I have struggles too, though. PSA is this horrible company that can't be trusted. I just sent $100,000 worth of cards. Also, the $200 level was not available back then. I didn't think so. It is what it is. But anyways, he at least had the platform. Happy to have him on. We're going to start doing some of this stuff more often anyways. I think there's a lot of issues in the hobby that are, the FCG fanboy, by the way, I think you're a funny troll, so you are welcome here anytime. We're bullies. If you thought that was bullying, I don't know what world you live in, and that's fine. You made the chat entertaining to read at least, so good for you. I hope you get a good job down there. I'm letting you speak now. I don't know what you're whining about, so you haven't said anything interesting. I don't really want to speak to you much more than that. I hope this is Phil. I kind of hope it's Phil, but either way, good for you. You voiced your opinion in the chat. Your comments are going to stand. I don't remove comments from stuff. So like I said, I have some fundamental issues with that guy. There's some other things that have happened later, and in the hobby as of recent too. There's some Tim, you're a scumbag. There's some scams that have happened recently. This whole alt situation is something I'm curious about. A lot of these things are not, the podcast is not the forum for them. And so I'm going to kind of use the Facebook stream and the YouTube stream as the outlet for some of this stuff. I can be a little bit more direct. I also don't think this is as interesting as a lot of the stuff on the podcast. I think this has a very much more focused audience. And so I'm not going to expose the entire podcast audience to a lot of it. But I do think it's good to, talk about these things. A bunch of guys in the comment section mentioned this Redbeard situation. I don't know who that is. I know the situation. I don't have any idea who he is, though. There's other grading companies too. We've had Tyler on here before in the past from HGA. He's welcome to come on. At some point, I'd like to talk to somebody from Alt and figure out the debacle that happened with their, what data mining or whatever they were doing with the Chrome login extension. Point being, there's plenty of areas in this hobby that are kind of gray areas that are not really well known, but people in the small circles talk about them. To me, I just think it's more of I just feel like a lot of these issues that are spoken about in small rooms need to be given a little bit bigger platform. Our YouTube is not a huge platform. Neither is the Facebook group either. I'm not trying to say that, but I do think it brings at least a little more attention. And then again, at the end of the day, now you can at least talk about it. So a couple of you mentioned in the chat too, we'd like to have CSG on. If they want to reach out, fine. I have no problem talking to anybody. So I'm fine with all of that. But there you go. That's the interview. We'll make sure it's posted on. And again, I did try to let him speak. I get excited. I'm not going to just sit there and listen to diatribes. And I thought he was fine anyways. He brought good energy as well. So, but there you go. I thought we gave him at least an opportunity to state his piece and why he likes his company and what they're doing. So make sure you check out Sports Cards Nonsense on the Ringer. I have my shirt on. You're welcome. Those are SP shirts. Hard to find these days. They also come in mediums. We're recording later on today, so that podcast will drop this afternoon on the Ringer Network, so make sure you check that out. There's a mailbag section posted as well. Make sure if you have any questions for the podcast, anything you want to talk about, just dump it in the mailbag section that we posted up today as well. So I just got a message from him. I don't know. It's a long message. I'll read that later. So there you go. Guys, appreciate the time. I'm going to end this thing now, and we will see you all later.